You are listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on the #1 global business talk and news network on the internet, IBGR, International Business Growth Radio, the world of business at your fingertips. I'm Jason Wally Waldron, the secret weapon behind owners, founders, and CEOs of blue-collar and industrial companies who apply Exitology to grow faster and maximize the value of their business. When these owners feel trapped in their businesses, we apply Exitology so you can buy back your time and freedom. I am your host for today's show. This season, we have been discussing creating lasting value, even in a challenging economy. After all, lasting value is the foundation of a successful exit. And I am honored to be joined here today by Christopher Snider. Chris Snider is the CEO of the Exit Planning Institute and the award-winning author of Walking to Destiny, which recently just turned 10 years old, and he actually just put out his second edition of this book. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. As we get started here, I thought maybe we could talk a little bit of, go into the past before we go into the now and the future, and just talk about the story that you have. You had been working in industry and you'd been working with a lot of these different types of supply chain companies, and you actually experienced something in your career where you saw what you called the perfect exit, and it was really the beginning of all of the work that you do now, and really the work that the Exit Planning Institute does. And so could you tell us a little bit about your history and how all of this came into being?
Yeah, sure. So my roots are in manufacturing and distribution. I actually started out as an auditor, but an operational auditor, not a financial auditor, where I would go out to the paint stores and the commercial branches and do audits, ensure compliance to the audit guide. Eventually, my career moved into materials management, systems integration, and supply chain management. It was really where my roots were. Right. So a lot of the process knowledge that I gained was really gained on the shop floor. Right.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to improve capacity, how to improve flow through the shop floor, and using technology to do that. Right.
Yeah.
That eventually led me to a couple of, Price Waterhouse. And I worked for a third party logistics company. So I got exposure to a lot of different companies doing that. Eventually, I worked my way into my first private business, which was a $90 million business at the time, $90 million in sales. And to me at that time, it was small. That was a small company, right? Because I had been working in these big Fortune 500 companies for the first 20 years of my career.
Yeah.
And I got into this privately held business, and it really changed my life. We took the company from $90 million to $250 million in 3 years.
Wow.
And sold it to a large multinational at quite a significant premium. And I called it the perfect exit because that's how I open up my book describing the company and the exit, because I've only seen one perfect exit in my life. And I was fortunate enough to be part of that exit.
That is amazing. That is amazing. We've actually held events called Creating Your Perfect Exit, and it was inspired by this story. And so we know, and we're going to share with the listeners here in a few minutes, how hard it is to create your perfect exit. So tell us a little bit why this, tell us the story. So you came into this company, and it went from a middle market, really high middle market type value in terms of 90 million all the way up to, I think you said 230 million before the owners sold. What made it the perfect exit?
Yeah, this really became my quest, because once we did that, I thought to myself, because we did it in a very intentional way, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And me sort of being a process person, I was always looking at, my quest was, how could that process be repeated, right? That became kind of my quest after we sold the company. And when I looked back at that experience, I realized there were very intentional things that we did as a team And primarily, and I talk about this in one of the chapters of my book, I call it the 4 C's, the intangible capitals that drive a business. We were very conscious of how we were developing our talent, how we were developing our customer relationships, building structural capital, systems, procedures, documentation, ISO, all of that kind of stuff. But most important was we had really built a very unique culture, by really optimizing the human, the structural, and the customer capital and building this unique culture. And so it was a very flat organization. What we were a just-in-time distributor to basically heavy equipment and trucking companies. What we had figured out was, first of all, I was brought in by Andy, the owner, to implement technology to enable the company to scale from 90 million to 250. And in my interview with Andy, that's basically what he said to me. He said, I'm looking for somebody that can help me scale this business from 90 million to 250 million in 3 years. And I was like, wow, that sounds like, I was really inspired by that.
Yeah.
And he knew that we were going to need technology to be able to scale the business that quickly. So, but, as all owners sort of understand, I think, technology isn't really, it provides a solution, but it's all the processes that have to be changed around the technology. And so we were very good. What we did is we went into our contracts and we said, look, we're going to single source all fastener components, right? So we were a nuts and bolts company, which isn't too exciting.
Right.
But to a trucking company or heavy equipment, a nut and bolt is typically one of the top 5 bill of materials within the build component, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they're only 5 and 10 cent parts.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So, the last thing you want to do is shut down an assembly line because you're missing a 5-cent part. And so what would the companies do? Typically what they do is you stockpile them. Right. So you've got all these nuts and bolts taken up. You got tons of financial resources tied up, plus tons of space to stack all of these nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And then what happens is an engineering change comes in and then you're stuck with all that inventory.
Yeah.
What do you do with it? So what we had come up with was a just-in-time system where we put bins right on the floor, right on the shop floor, the assembly line. And then we had them electronically connected back to a satellite warehouse that was maybe 10 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
And then those satellite warehouses were electronically connected to our suppliers. So when somebody used a part, we would have our own people in the shop on the assembly line scanning, the usage. And then we would send a signal all the way back. So what we were able to do is, first of all, control the whole supply chain. Because everything from the point of use back was all done by Flexoloy. And we were able to do a vendor consolidation. We were able to streamline the whole process and improve the quality. So doing all of those things while lowering the price put us in a pretty good position in the market.
So here there's a lot of really great things that I want to call out here. But first of all, what I love is that you started with intention and goals, right? A really tall challenge was placed in front of you on day number 1 by the owner of this business, and everybody was intentional, everybody was aligned, and everybody was motivated to reach those goals. And then the other thing that I really want to call out is there was a lot of strategic thinking involved and really design of processes and design of what needed to happen first before you started to implement. Because I think we've all seen these types of, shall we say, projects that turn into disasters where you think that, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail type things, right? Oh, this software is the solution. The software is really never the solution. It's more finding methodologies and proven ways to achieve different types of goals in alignment with those intentions to then come back and then find what those tools actually are. Would that be a fair assessment?
I mean, absolutely, it's a fair. I've always felt that way, and even though I spent a lot of time in supply chain and IT, I've never felt that the software is the solution. So here's an example. The company that bought us was 20 times our size.
Oh.
One of the things that they looked at was they were using the same technology platform that we were using. The big difference was ours was working, theirs was a cluster, right?
Right.
And so they looked and they were like, how are you guys doing that? And it was
Right.
really the combination of all the things you just mentioned, pulling all of that together, right?
Yep.
Including the people behind it, right?
Right.
And they looked at that and they said, man, if we could get our technology running the way Flexalloy is running,
Yeah.
think of the synergies we could create throughout our facilities. So the technology and the structural capital that we had created,
Yep.
and the human capital that we built around that, right?
Yep. Yep.
And the culture that was created from that was really what drove the value up, because a company 20 times our size could take that
Yep.
and then leverage that within all of their facilities and, create a lot of value that way.
Here's what I love about this. This happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. Am I correct?
Yes.
So the trend that you just discussed here, and the proof of concept, I should say, that you just discussed here in creating that perfect exit is still happening to this very day. In fact, Walmart has been deploying this type of, that they're the big whale who has acquired over 200 companies so that they are now a tech company. And I call that out and want to bring those similarities together because of what you just explained about, what is Walmart really buying? They're buying the 4 C's and all of that value so that it can permeate upwards into their larger organization.
Yeah, the intellectual capital, if you studied it, what owners will find is that 80% of the value of a premium business is tied to their intellectual capital or their intangible assets, not their tangible assets, right?
Yep.
And so what made Flexalloy so special and so valuable wasn't that, like, we were on the same technology as the company that bought us. So we had the same technology. The difference was we figured out how to use it.
Perfect. Well, Chris, we're going to take a short break here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're talking about, check out more about Chris Snider and his book at walkingtodestiny.com. We'll be right back with you here on the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show.